So now let's go ahead and generate a quest. I did some of this in advance. I found it useful to use the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. It's got some nice tables on, where is it? Starting around in the 70s somewhere, starting on like page 73. It's got some tables for dungeon goals, wilderness goals, adventure villains, adventure allies, adventure patrons, adventure introduction, adventure climax. So these different tables that can help you come up with an idea of what you're trying to do and kind of why you're trying to do it. What's motivating you? Why are you bothering to do this? Well, there's already kind of an overarching motivation, as I said earlier, but I like to try and come up even with a motivation for an individual dungeon. Certainly it's plenty to just have someone come along to the guild and say, we got a problem, we'll pay you to solve it. And most times that is plenty for me. So what I've done, just so I don't have to spend too much time flipping through pages and rolling on tables and stuff, is created just a list, enough in each kind of category that I'm going to roll on to get us through 4 dungeons, which I would be surprised if I had time to do more than 4 between today and tomorrow. But I'll just do some quick rolling here, and we'll see just what I kind of randomly come up with after narrowing it down. So, first, the setting, the time, the context in which this adventure comes our way is the Sports Ball Championship game. So it is the Sports Ball Championship game right now, and you are at the you're at the marketplace. So maybe in the middle of the championship, people are excitedly buying supplies to just go out and party after the game or before the game or during the game. Some kind of medieval fantasy version of tailgating. I don't know. But you're in the marketplace in the middle of this big, probably multi-day, maybe a week-long event, the Sports Ball Championship. And in the middle of all this, you are approached by, let's see here, the city sage. Wonder if he's a sports ball fan. Maybe not. Maybe he's been troubled by something he's going to tell me about. I don't know. While everyone else is just having festivities, he's the one that's really still got his feet on the ground and thinking about the concerns of the world, while everyone's trying to just escape from it. And he tells you about a scheming alchemist who is taking advantage of this distracted time among the people right now. An alchemist who is scheming and seeking to rule. So in some way, he's planning on ruling maybe this city. Maybe he's planning a coup. Maybe he's been building up to this moment with all of his plans long term, and now he's determined it's his time to strike sometime in the middle of this sports ball festival. Let's see here. So in light of this, you are asked to do what? To seize control of a fortified location. So perhaps this scheming alchemist doesn't have he's got his lab set up somewhere, but he's also been maybe concocting potions that have allowed him to drug other armies of some kind or some forces of some kind, or in some other way he's been able to manipulate them through alchemy to follow him and his cause. And he's got this fortified location nearby where he's building up his forces, and maybe that's the hub from which they plan to attack the city or other strategic locations in the area. Let's see. Do I need a motivation for this? I mean, I know I'm going to get some coin. Let's see what I roll. There's 4 motivations I could possibly get. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, sure. We'll throw this in there. So the mage is offering to pay, but on top of that, after he's done speaking, a ghost appears, and is followed by a mage from the tower. I mean, the text specifically says, a ghost appeared soon after this request, and an ally mage of the tower reveals that it can only be put to rest if you accomplish this quest. So I'm going to say that in the middle of this conversation, seemingly by chance, this ghost appears, wanders into the marketplace. People start seeing it. They're freaking out. They got their goods. They're running. And there is, hiking up his robes and trying to hurry along after the ghost is a mage that has apparently been watching it and taking notes and trying to decipher, what does this mean? What omen is this ghost about? And the ghost doesn't speak, or if it does, maybe it just mouths words, but it's in another plane of existence, and so you can't really make out what it's saying, even if you're trying to read its lips. And then it vanishes, and this mage who's been watching it for days was suddenly shocked to see it leave the mage tower, which it had been haunting, and then it comes out into the marketplace on a singular focused mission, apparently to come and see your adventuring party, or we'll say Elderast, who was buying alchemical ingredients himself in the market. And based on this behavior, based on what the mage has seen so far, he has determined that this ghost was once a partner, a lab partner, we'll say, in Mage College, with the scheming alchemist, and could see the dark turn that this alchemist was going to go down, and he had the opportunity to stop him and take decisive action, but he didn't take decisive action enough. And while he waited and hemmed and hawed, this mage realized that this man who was once his friend is going to become an obstacle, and so he poisoned him, and that's how he died. But this mage just feels this great burden of responsibility for the missed opportunity that he had to stop this evil alchemist when he could, before he really became the problem that he is now. And so he will only find peace. All kinds of problems with this theology, of course, but he will only find peace when this alchemist is dealt with. Although stuff like this, it's funny thinking about the spiritual world and the idea of ghosts and stuff like that, because we see in, I want to say I don't think it's 1 Samuel, I think it's 2 Samuel, I don't remember which one, but we do see that Saul went and visited this diviner, this seer, or this somebody that was, I think some translations will refer to it as the witch of Endor. But anyway, he goes and talks to this person who then is able seemingly to summon the spirit of, was it Samuel or another? I feel like there was 2 prophets, and I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. And I've always had questions about that. Now, the seer seemed freaked out and shocked, maybe because, this is really not the thing that usually happens when I do this. So we maybe could read into that in some way, that something unusual was happening there, not that this seer does normally have the ability to summon a spirit that would in this case be with Yahweh. So what's going on there? I think there's something to be said for the shock of the necromancer, the diviner, or whatever that title was for that person. But anyway, interesting stuff. But in the context of this fantasy world, it's really just a trope. So yeah, we've got to go take care of this evil alchemist for multiple reasons. To give this ghost some rest, and to save the people from an imminent violent coup of the emperor, or at least maybe the local king. So let's see, let me mark that so I don't reuse that in a future dungeon. And let's see, where does this... Well, I think that because we are... Let's see. Do all these... There's a table I could roll for locations. I think I could roll in any of these I could make sense of somehow. There's 4 options here. 1. Well, it ends up working out perfectly. This quest takes place in a hidden fortress. There were other options that wouldn't have been as natural a combination with the goal of seizing control of a fortified location, but a hidden fortress it is. Okay, so now we've kind of generated our story a little bit. Hi, Stephen Cornegay. Thanks for jumping into the chat. If you want, because I'm often focused and stuff and can miss what's going on in the chat, if you put @ChristianGeekCentral somewhere in your message with the spelling correct and no spaces, that'll be highlighted in orange and a little less likely for me to miss it. But Steven says, great idea to mix the two systems to flesh out the story. I own the basic For Against Darkness, but this opens it up so much more. And then he adds, good way to create an adventure to DM for others as well. Yeah. And I played this game for the first time with my friend 2 weekends ago, a week and a half ago, and I had before that played like four dungeons just by myself, and I was wondering, is this going to be too simplistic for each of us to say, split up the party and each control two party members, but kind of make decisions together about the direction of the guild and things like that. And it surprisingly worked out really well. I think part of that is because he and I also just like to talk about stuff, whether that's, just whatever dorky topics come to mind, or we like to deliberate about different choices and stuff. And so it was a good fit for us. I think for some people it might be too simplistic to just have 2 heroes per player. In fact, the rulebook, I think, suggests doing 3 heroes per player. I haven't tried that yet, but that makes sense as a good option too. All right, so we've got our context now. So at this point, I want to generate our dungeon loadout. So normally in For Against Darkness, you have these tables that you're given. Let me see if I can find one really quick. I don't want to spend too much time. Yeah, here we go. So in the base game, you have this table here. It's your vermin table. There are 4 classifications of enemies. Well, 2 main classifications, and then 4 if you count sub-classifications. The classifications are minion and boss, and within minions, you have vermin minions and minion minions. And that's a kind of a weird overlap in terminology. It does kind of make things a little bit confusing sometimes. The other category is boss, and within that you have weird monster bosses and boss bosses. But anyway, on the vermin table, you'll see that there are 6 enemy types here with 6 different stats. Vermin and minions, and each of the tables has 6 enemies like this. And vermins and minions are by far, in my experience, the enemies that you are going to be running into most often in dungeons. And so, as you can imagine, you might get kind of bored after just 2 or 3 dungeons of kind of running into the same monsters over and over again. Now there is at least one expansion. Let me see if I can dig it out here. Here it is, called Twisted Minions, which doesn't give you, unfortunately, more monster stats to work with, but rather lets you roll to create random modifications or alterations to the monsters that you're already using. But for me, one of the big draws to games like this is a wide variety of monster types, so that I'm always kind of taken off guard and having to remember, okay, what's the deal with this monster, or running into something I've never run into before. What the crap is that? So I really like variety, and my friend Mark really likes thematic consistency. When we would play Pathfinder the Adventure card game, he would be like, why are we running into this alligator in the middle of a mage tower in the desert? And you kind of have to come up, with a headcanon for why that makes sense. And he really prefers some thematic consistency. If you're in a crypt, you should really just be running into mostly undead. And so I have purchased enough expansions and also purchased these enemy cards that are officially licensed products for Against Darkness that you can get on, I believe, Drive-Thru-RPG. So I've got enough monster variety now that I can create some thematic dungeons in the sense of like what kinds of creatures inhabit it. And so We are going to a hidden fortress. We're going to battle a mage or an alchemist. Maybe that's a subcategory of mage. I don't know. So what kind of enemies would it make sense for us to run into? So that's kind of what I'm going to figure out here. I mean, rats are pretty good. Glue mini golems. I mean, if we were at his lab, that would make more sense. But we're not at his lab. So I kind of feel like I'm almost kind of imagining a humanoid-built stone fortress, maybe built into the side of a mountain that's half cut into the mountain and half, man-made or humanoid-made. And so I don't think it's going to be a place that has just a bunch of crazy, weird monsters. I think rats are pretty standard. I don't know about these giant centipedes. Vampire frog seems a little weird. I don't want to go too nuts with the rats here, but I do have several different types of rats. I don't know about vampire bats. Goblin swarmlings, that makes sense. Any kind of humanoid thing I would really kind of gravitate toward, but there's not a ton to choose from. Let's see. Well, maybe there would be... Maybe we can have it dominated by pretty traditional things like rats and goblin swarmlings. But then there can also be some evidence that there's an alchemist in charge here. And so that would make sense that he would have some weird little golems of some kind. Glue mini golems. And what else? Maybe fiendish ferns. Maybe that would be something that maybe he's got, a room that's dedicated to growing plants that he extracts ingredients from. I guess maybe we could put these bugs there. He might be experimenting on that and on them in some way. Maybe he's got... No, I don't want to say that spiders are running rampant. I mean, I can make sense of most of these things on a one-off basis, but for them to be kind of potentially roaming around is where I kind of run into troubles. So let's go with some rats for sure. We'll go with goblins, goblin swarmlings, blue mini golems. We could do probably 2 or all 3 types of rats here, maybe. That's what I'm kind of feeling. If we got to do 6, I think. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I want it. Well, I'm tempted for the sake of variety to do one of these centipede type things, but actually I think I will just stick to rats. Whoever he's got working for him. I mean, obviously goblins are part of the group. They're probably not very hygienic. They're probably sloppy. They're probably leaving food all over the place that's going to attract rats. And so I think this will be my loadout. Fiendish ferns, rats, bone picker rats, skeletal rats, blue mini golems, and goblin swarmlings. All right, so that's my loadout for minions. Vermin. Sorry, my loadout for vermin minions. And now for minions. Let's see. Well, goblins make sense. Already got some of those. Well, goblin poisoner makes a lot of sense since we have an alchemist. Maybe he's equipped and trained some of them in some way. I don't know. Just thematically makes some sense there. I'm really feeling humanoid. I want to go humanoid as much as possible because in my mind this is kind of his army that he's been hiring of mercenaries or something. So we could get some orcs in there. I got several varieties of orcs, so maybe I'll kind of stick to orcs and goblins. That's pretty standard, and for a first dungeon, as I'm live streaming here, that makes sense. Let's go pretty traditional on this. Orcs and goblins. What do we have? We've got steppe orcs. So that's 4. We need 2 more. Orcs of the red plume and orc pikemen. Yeah, I think that's good. Pretty orc heavy. And that really establishes the sloppy humanoid presence that would leave enough mess around to attract all those rats. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. So that will be my minion loadout. Next up is weird monsters. These are kind of like mini bosses, I guess the equivalent in other games. So I don't know. Iron Eater. I don't know how to pronounce this. Catoblepas? That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I've settled into with my friend. But that is a weird looking thing. A weird sounding name. Chimera, Green Harpy, Minotaur. I'm going to set aside humanoids as I go along. Savage Werewolf? I don't know. Could he be experimenting and trying to create a force of werewolves to do his bidding? Not really planning on doing undead stuff. Not really the best fit for this. Chaos Goblin Shaman. I can see that working, even though that's a little bit more of a mystical type of idea. I think that it kind of goes hand in hand with mages and maybe even alchemists, so I'm open to that at least. Yeah, no, that's undead. No. And we got more undead. So running out of good thematic options here. There's a mist dragon. Sure, why not? Every wizard needs maybe one or more dragons that they're breeding to do their bidding. So I gotta come up with two more. Let's see here. I guess, yeah, like maybe some monsters would make sense. Because like maybe he's creating some werewolves. And he is kind of like keeping in pens. Minotaur seemed like a good humanoid, a big, bulky humanoid servant of some kind. But then like a black-tailed manticore would make sense as something that he could get components from. Man, I've been playing Monster Hunter World again, and that really resonates with me. I think that if I were to create a character class for this, at this point, that I haven't seen yet, done officially or unofficially, it would be something that emulates Monster Hunter and the idea of gathering components from monsters. There are some quests you can get, there is some alchemy stuff, so I think it would probably be some offshoot of an alchemist and a ranger or a fighter or something like that. But that's probably something I'll do at some point for this game. So Black-tailed Manticore, we just need one more. Chimera, maybe. I kind of think of them as, I mean, I believe the name in the original lore of a chimera is like it's a creature that comes from dreams. A giant spider would make more sense. Extracting venom from the giant spider. Maybe a Catoblepas. Let's see, do I have 6 yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the Catoblepas will be 6. Okay. That works well enough in my headcanon. So those are the weird monsters that I could potentially run into. And then finally, the boss monsters. Now in this table, I'm only going to make... I call it tables, but they're really these decks of cards, and instead of rolling on a d6 on a table with 6 options, I roll a d6, and then I count as I pull cards off the top of each of these small 6-card decks I've made. And whatever card is revealed when I pull off the last card, that's the card that I'm going to be facing. And it worked really well for me and my friend when we played this. But as it so happens, perfectly, one of the bosses is a mad alchemist. And so, sorry, the lighting isn't the best there. But yeah, so I'm going to set this aside. And when I trigger the final boss battle, I will do. I will just pull out the Mad Alchemist as my final boss. So I need 4 more. Water Fiend. I don't know. That seems kind of elemental. Lizard Man Knight. I don't know. Okay, Ogre. So humanoid is kind of good. Ogre. Ogre Smasher. Ogre Hunter Gatherer. Just standard ogre. These are good starting points. Maybe a dragon. I've already got one in there. I don't want to overdo it with the dragons. Black Knight doesn't feel like the best fit. Mountain Goblin Assassin. That would help us continue to build on the goblin theme we've already been developing. That's undead. Oh, here's an Orc Warlord. That sounds perfect. That'll definitely be in here. More undead. Another dragon. A Chaos Lord. That doesn't seem quite right. Ooh, Orc Brute. Nice. We probably have enough here to choose from. So I'm going to prioritize my orcs and this goblin. So we got 3 already. We're not going to need this dragon. So yeah, we got 6. We're going to do Ogre, Ogre Hunter Gatherer, Ogre Smasher, Mountain Goblin Assassin, Orc Warlord, and Orc Brute. Oh, but I only need 5. So what do I want to get rid of? How about one of these ogres? They're the ones that stand out a little bit as not belonging. I don't think I don't know, just the name alone, Hunter-Gatherer, doesn't sound super epic as a boss fight, so I'll just take him out. So we got Ogre, Ogre Smasher, Orc Warlord, Mountain Goblin Assassin, and Orc Brute. Okay, so we've got our loadout figured out now. I think it's a pretty good thematic loadout. So now we got to purchase supplies. Now I do have like some basic supplies that I buy every time, and I made a quick note of. Oh, it looks like I already shopped after I played the last game. So I've got my bandages. I've got a lantern. I've got the. Let me make sure that the. I've got my mapping supplies. There are some optional rules I'm playing with. There are rules that I'm going to break on accident and on purpose. I will probably, as I play this, say, now you do this and now you do this. Don't take that as me saying, now you should do this. This is how the game is played, because there's a good chance I'm probably getting something wrong. Or I'm deviating from the rules, and I just don't want to take time to try and say when all I'm doing that. But you should be able to get a good sense of just the core meat and potatoes that is common to everyone's experience, you know, in terms of the mechanics of this game. Okay, so it looks like I've done that. Have I determined my spells? That's something that's pretty key. My wizard here, Elderast, has 2 sleep spells. And I will, this is a really great, I see lots of people on YouTube and stuff using this, but this is a user-made character sheet from Board Game Geek, as is this as well. This is a recreation of an official chart that's in the rulebook, but this one is just a little bit more stylized and stuff, and it's got a nice look to it. And then this is just kind of like some handy-dandy. I usually use just a normal book of graph paper, but for the sake of streaming, I wanted to use something that I wouldn't have to, you know, figure out the section and measure the edges and all that kind of stuff for how many spaces I need. So yeah, this is very convenient for what I'm doing now. But yeah, he's got 2 sleep spells ready to go. As I use those, I'll fill in that dot in the middle. He's got 3 fireball spells, 2 and then like 1 extra that I'm trying to remember. I think he just... Oh, he gained a static ability on a quest that he went on to be able to use 1 more copy of a spell of his choice while he goes out adventuring. So I always have this static 1 extra fireball spell ready to go. And a lightning spell. He knows Escape, Protect, and Blessing, but he's not bringing any of those along. He's got a fireball staff with 2 charges. He's got a healing potion ready to be used, a sleep scroll, so he can cast sleep in extra time, a ring of teleportation, and explosive potions that do 2 damage. That's actually something that I gained from previously fighting a mad alchemist. So I've actually fought this boss before. Let's see. My rogue also has a healing potion. That's good. Let's see. Oh yeah, good. My cleric has a healing potion and then has 3 slots of healing ready to go, 3 slots of blessing ready to go. Good. And my dwarf, who is also serving as my primary fighter, also has a healing potion. They've each got bandages, and I'll fill in those circles as I actually use the bandages. You can use those between fights, not during fights, to heal 1 hit point. All right. Now, I am terrible at multitasking, as I've said already during this live stream series this week, so we'll see how this goes. But it looks like I'm ready to enter into the dungeon and actually start the crawl proper. First thing we do, and I won't show you this probably every time, but this is the page with that you roll on first, just using a 6-sider to determine what the shape of your starting room is. So it's going to be this one here. which I'm going to try and recreate at the bottom of this page here. Where'd my pencil go? Oh, I got pencils all over the place. Let's see. So it goes up like that, down like that. Got a door there. 1, 2 left. 1, 2, 3 up. 1, 2, door here. And that extends up into a corridor. This is going to go up 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, door here. I don't think I've ever had this entry room before. That's kind of cool. All right. So this is where the party starts out. There's no encounters you need to roll for in the first room of the dungeon. So now we just decide where we're going to go from here. And I just always drag my left hand against the wall to be as complete as possible in my dungeon crawling. So I am going to go here. So at this point, we're going to roll D66. So that's 2 10-sided dice, one representing the 10s, one representing the 1s. I always roll, when I'm doing 10s, a black die, because black eye helps me remember that black is high. So the result this time is 22. So that's going to be this one here. So it's got, and really you can rotate this to make it fit. However, this part of the game is really loosey-goosey in terms of like how you make it work. You can, as far as I know, you can line up a door with an entryway. It doesn't have to line up with a door. I mean, it's just like the only purpose of the doors and the open entryways is that mechanically they determine how easy it is for you to escape from a fight while you're crawling the dungeon. But otherwise, you know, it's not really relevant. So let's see, do I want to rotate this? I want to leave as much opportunity as possible to, yeah, I think this way will make the most sense. So we're going to go 1 up, 1 right, 1, 2, 3. And if you ever run out of room because you run into the edge of the map, or you run into a pre-existing room or hallway or something, you just cut off the portion that you're not able to draw in. And just draw in what you can. And they also give you leeway to extend a room or a corridor by up to 2 spaces to make it better fit, maybe with another dungeon room or something like that. Okay, so this is where the party is right now. And now I roll for the contents of this room. And you'll see here, this is the chart that I'm rolling on. I'm actually looking at another one that's on my table here because I've penciled in some page numbers and other helpful notes and even some modifications that I use to make things a little bit more, have a little more variety, make them a little bit more interesting. But this is basically the table that I'm working off of. So I'm going to roll 2d6, and this time I add the result together. All right, the result is 8, and we are in a room, so we look at that part of the table, and the room is empty. However, we can search. Now, a search is a roll of 1d6, and I've got little reminder notes here, one of several, that on a 1, I'll get a wandering monster. On a 2 to 4, the room will be empty, and just, you know, mark it as searched and move on. On a 5 to 6, I can choose to get a clue, a secret, is that a secret door maybe? I think is what that maybe refers to. Or a hidden treasure. And info of that is on, for that is on page 56. So I am going to search. I don't like wandering monsters, but the other options, you know, pretty good maybe. Okay, so we got a 3, which means the room is empty. So then I just mark this room as searched. So there's nothing more to find there as we backtrack through. No option to search again. And now we will continue to progress. We'll go out this door, continuing to drag our hand along the left, rolling for contents again. or not contents, but excuse me, the shape of the room. So this time I got a 12. Let's see. Oh yeah, pretty much just one way to do this. 1, 2, 3. Just a wee little corridor here. So now we enter the corridor, and normally, you know, I would play this on a notebook that's just like flat on the ground. I'm using this kind of book stand to make it easier to stream and show you what's going on. But I would then also use like a little cube like this, so that, and I found this to be the case, this is a great game to just kind of sit down and play a few turns of if you want, and then move on to something else with your night, and you can just put a little cube there to pick up where you left off again. Or, you know, of course, you can, as I might end up doing in the stream at some point, put a little P there that I'll then erase when my party moves on from that location. But anyway, right here, we're going to roll for the contents of this corridor now. And that gives me a result of 10. Oh, wait! I goofed up last time. I looked at the corridor side instead of the room side. So I should have been rolling on the minions table, should have had my first combat. Sorry about that. So 10 now, and this time we are in a corridor. Empty, but you can search. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and search. 3 again, so this one's empty. Kind of uneventful so far, but let's keep going into the depths. Okay, so this time, 61. Oof, this is kind of big. Barely going to have room for it all. This makes the most sense to orient it just as they're showing it to me. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. That's going to go over that way. Door right there. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I do like running into rooms more than corridors because there's more likelihood for treasure, if I remember correctly. More likelihood of, I think, of monster encounters and boss weird monsters and stuff like that too. Let's find out what's in this room. 2. All right. Cool. I just get to roll on the treasure table. Let's see. That's on page 34, but I've got a little note here that I can just go to. So on a 0, because you can have modifiers to these rolls. On a 0, there's nothing. On a 1, you get D6 gold pieces. On a 2, you get 2 D6 gold pieces. On a 3, you get a random spell scroll. On a 4, you get 2d6 times 5 value of a gem. And then on a roll of 5, 3d6 times 10 value of jewelry. And then on a 6 or higher, you get magic treasure. So that's pretty cool. But let's find out what actually happens to me here. Oh my gosh, I rolled a 6. What a beautiful thing. Now for this first one, normally at this point I roll again. There's a 50% chance that I will not use the magic treasure table that's in the core game, but I will take something from an expansion that I bought, which has a ton of magic treasure, because I like variety and loot as well. But just for the sake of this one, I'm going to go with the base rule book. Where did I put that? Rule book. Here it is. So page 34. Just a d6 roll. Oh crap, I got a 1. That's not bad. It's a wand of sleep. The user may cast sleep. Actually, that's pretty great. User may cast sleep spell 3 times before its energy is depleted. Only wizards and elves may use it. Add the user's level to determine the spell roll, as you would do for a sleep spell cast by that character. So I am absolutely giving Eldorath this wand of sleep. Nice. Very nice. Sleep wand, baby. Sleep is a really, really handy spell. Especially in groups of monsters. Like in old school D&D, it's one of the most useful spells because you can put a bunch of monsters to sleep and then just walk up and casually, cut their throats and they're dead. I remember I was not a fan when I was playing D&D once and used a sleep spell, and the game master ruled that they could wake up after to avoid my cutting their throat. That didn't seem good to me. That seemed like he didn't want me to so easily kill his monsters. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.